Lovely, thank you so much. So, welcome to today's Combined Authority meeting, taking place on the 80th anniversary of VE Day, a day when we remember the bravery and the sacrifice of those who secured victory in Europe. I know all of us have paid our respects at ceremonies across West Yorkshire. Today, I had the honour of attending the ceremony in Leeds, where we paid tribute to the men and women who played such a vital role in that historic achievement. As we reflect on the sacrifices made, it's important we also acknowledge the immense contribution of women from our region during the war, from factory workers in Leeds to those in the Women's Voluntary Service, and from nurses on the front lines to those in the Women's Auxiliary Air Force and Women's Land Army. Women across West Yorkshire played a pivotal role in the war effort. Women like Elsie Barlow from Huddersfield, who served in the Air Transport Auxiliary, Dorothy Hall from Leeds, who worked in military communications, and Beryl Pritchard from Bradford, who led efforts in the Women's Land Army, to name but a few. Meanwhile, many brave soldiers from West Yorkshire who served in the Royal West Yorkshire Regiment, the Royal Yorkshire and Lancashire Regiment, and the Royal Air Force fought in critical battles like the D-Day landings, the Battle of Normandy, Monte Cassino, Arnhem, and the Battle of the Bulge. Whether serving on the front lines, defending our skies during the Battle of Britain, or working tirelessly on the home front in factories, farms, and other logistical roles, every contribution was vital to securing victory. It was the collective courage, determination, and sacrifice of all of them, women and men alike, that helped shape the world we live in today. On this VE Day, we remember their shared courage and determination, and we honour them, not just as distant heroes, but as our own. So, with that, let's get on with the business of today's meeting. And we do have extra information about the people that I've name-checked, and some of their work is truly astonishing and humbling. If you'd like to know more about those women we spoke about, please do just ask. Okie doke. Sarah, any apologies today?
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Denise Jeffrey. Councillor Morley is attending on her behalf. Councillor Claire Douglas and Councillor Kilbane is attending on her behalf. Councillor Sue Holsworth, Councillor Galton is attending on her behalf, and Mandy Ridyard and Yasma Iqbal is attending on her behalf.
Thank you. Also, the Chair of the Transport Committee, Councillor Susan Hinchcliffe, is in a meeting and will be joining us later. Thank you. Any declarations of interest on any item in the papers? No? Thank you. Okie doke. Item 3. Officers have advised that information contained in Appendices 1 and 3 to Agenda Item 6, bus franchising, and Appendix 1 to Agenda Item 8, White Rose Rail Station, are treated as exempt under Paragraph 3 of Part 1 to Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. This is because they contain information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the Combined Authority, and further, that it's considered that the public interest in maintaining the content of the appendices as exempt outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information, as publication would prejudice current and future decision making. If we agree, the press and public will be excluded should members wish to discuss the content of the appendices when we consider items 6 and 8. Are we content to agree the recommendation the information is exempt? We are. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on. Minutes of April the 3rd, 2025. Are there any comments or questions on the minutes? Yes, Councillor Anderson.
Just to say, I think I was here. It says I'm not here, but I was. I'm sure I was causing havoc.
You always make your presence felt, Councillor Anderson, so I'm sure we can rectify that. Thank you. So moving on to the Mayor's update, I want to begin by referring to the crossbow attack in Headingley on the 26th of April. The investigation remains live, so we must be a little careful how we refer to the incident. The events of that weekend were absolutely horrific, and my thoughts are with the victims and the wider community following this serious incident in Headingley. I continue to be fully briefed by counter-terrorism police, who now lead these investigations alongside West Yorkshire Police. A man who was a key suspect has sadly now died, and while officers are currently not seeking anyone else in connection with this matter, a thorough and extensive investigation to establish the facts and circumstances will continue. We don't know yet if this is a terrorist incident. This is why counter-terrorism are investigating to see if that's the case. I know that the public will be very anxious about what happened, but I want to reassure everyone listening, this is such a rare occurrence. And now I've spoken with the Home Secretary about the incident, and I was pleased the government have made their intention clear to tighten current legislation on the ownership and use of crossbows. It cannot be right that you can buy a crossbow on the internet in the space of 20 minutes, and all they care about is where is it going to be sent and how are you going to pay. We really have to make sure that these dangerous weapons have controls that will protect the public. Alison Lowe and I, my Deputy Mayor for Policing and Crime, maintain our focus on the safety of women and girls with our dedicated Women's Safety Unit, identifying and responding to emerging trends that are putting women's safety at risk. We recently held a very well-attended roundtable with regional MPs to update them on our work to combat violence against women and girls. The roundtable included 3 rape crisis centres in the region, along with victims and survivors who were able to share their stories. The roundtable formed part of our wider work to influence the government policy making, which continues at pace over the last month and into the future. We held an event on our mass transit proposals in Westminster, getting 24 MPs, including the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, from our region and beyond, making the case it is time for trams in West Yorkshire. A really positive mood around the project, lots of support. It got great coverage in local and national press. I also met with the Chief Secretary to the Treasury earlier this week alongside my fellow mayors, where I was able to set out our broader ask for the spending review. So in addition to the tram, making the case for a new station in Bradford, capacity at Leeds Station, revenue for bus services, and the quantum of our single settlement. That came on the back of meetings I attended with Councillor Hinchcliffe, with Lord Hendy, the Rail Minister, and also with Alex Norris, the Minister in MHCLG, about the new station in Bradford and wider regeneration, and Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary, about our plans to deliver a fully integrated transport network. So I believe we're directly influencing departmental submissions into the spending review and into Treasury decision making as well. You will be reassured to know I will keep on pushing with just over a month to go until the Chancellor unveils her review to Parliament, and by our next meeting we'll know what she had to say and we will be able to discuss it. Finally, it would be remiss of me not to offer my heartfelt congratulations to Leeds United for their promotion back to the Premier League, and of course to the Bantams of Bradford City for the promotion back to League One. Both clubs are hugely important to huge numbers of people across the region. And as you could see from the numbers who turned out in the city centre to celebrate earlier this week, they will continue in that support. Sporting success breeds confidence and vitality into places. And I know we're all hoping that that continues long into the future. And can I say that Councillor Lewis looked resplendent on the top of the bus with the team from Leeds United. And he got the best view in the house, I think. Okie dokie. Moving on to item 6, bus franchising. Now, with the next item, which is about the next steps for bus franchising, earlier this year, the Combined Authority approved our lotting and depot strategies, as well as endorsing the proposal to retire the Metro Transport Network identity and to adopt a new name and brand identity for West Yorkshire's integrated transport network. This report looks at further areas of development across the franchising programme, the provision of fleet, the customer proposition and transport branding. Now, to remind colleagues, appendices 1 to 3 to this item are exempt. So I'm going to suggest that once the introductions to this item are made, we go into private session to discuss these. So if there are members of the public in the room, I'm afraid I will have to ask you to leave. So in the first instance, Simon Warburton, would you like to just open up the item and then we'll go into private session? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So following on from your introductory comments, I'm pleased to continue to inform the Combined Authority that all of the necessary progress is continuing so that we will be ready for our first critical milestone with regard to bus franchising, which of course will be the issuing of invitation to tender documentation for round one on the 1st of October. And so following on from the strategies that we brought forward previously, this is the latest piece of the toolkit that we are bringing forward to ensure that we are in a strong position for that particular date. As you've said, Mayor, the paper today deals with three aspects of the work that's underway. The first element is with regards to our fleet strategy, where there is a significant body of work that is underway to set out how we will meet our very, very clear objectives to establish the most consistent fleet possible through the programme, and for that fleet to build out to be fully zero emission operation as fitting with our net zero policies, but at the same time throughout the process continuing to ensure that there is consistent provision on the streets to deliver our services throughout the period of transition. And in the appendix, which I'm happy to take further questions on when we move into private, we set out both the baseline position in terms of the fleet at present in West Yorkshire and the mechanisms that we intend to use and the options within them to safeguard our position throughout the approach. And we have also included as an appendix an outline business case for our fleet investment case, and we're seeking approval today for that so that we can then move to a full business case. The second area of work that we've set out is in many ways the central element of our case for bus franchising, which is the customer proposition. As you've been very clear on as the Combined Authority throughout this process, we are undertaking this change so that we can secure the best possible customer service on our streets. And what we've started to set out here for members, and we will continue to bring further material forward on, is the scope of the work that's now underway to ensure that we build on the customer services that we have already been providing for a number of years, to really now embed a fully integrated proposition across four areas in particular: our approach to information and pricing, so that we have a very clearly integrated journey planning and ticketing model, our move to a one-point customer support model, taking the complexity out of the management of travel issues for our customers. That approach to a consistent fleet that means that all users of our network in the future will have the confidence in terms of using vehicles across the fleet, and our approach to what we've set out as a welcoming waiting environment within our bus stations, at our shelters and stops, which are our first statement for our customers on the journey, and such an important statement around the transport system right across our streetscape, right across West Yorkshire. And then thirdly, very excitingly, we're also introducing for private discussion with members today the outcome of the work that we've been undertaking to look at network branding, which will then enshrine that customer pledge that we are looking to make through the customer proposition.
Thank you so much, Simon. And Councillor Galton, obviously this is not about the appendices. We are still in public session. Thank you, Councillor Galton.
Thanks, Mayor. I was looking at the risks and mitigation section, and it was quite a general response to the paper. I was just thinking, because the government has committed to delivering bus franchising at a more accelerated rate than the previous government to the new combined authorities and mayoral authorities that are emerging, I would have thought that a lot of them are going to be going down the same route in terms of franchising and in terms of putting consistency in their fleet operations. And I was wondering what we'd done around risk mitigation in terms of loads of people turning up to a congested bus market, all trying to order at the same time when the market won't deliver what they want. And if there is an opportunity for more of that production to be delivered within the UK, especially given the environment we've got at the moment with tariffs being imposed from outside, I think it would be really useful to get an understanding about how we're doing that ourselves or in partnership with others to guarantee that delivery.
Thank you. You'll be pleased to know there's a great piece of work happening. Simon.
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Mayor. So as you will be aware, the Transport Minister, Simon Lightwood, has recently convened a task and finish roundtable activity overseen by a roundtable of the mayors with the Minister to ensure that the supply sector is able to meet the ambitions of the bus agenda across the UK. Alex Clark, who leads on our bus franchising programme, has now joined a technical officers group that is supporting the Minister's roundtable, and be very, very happy for us to bring updates forward in terms of how that work is progressing. And just to reassure Councillor Galton that we very much share the view, and we're working very closely through that mechanism, that there are real industrial strategy opportunities associated with this, as well as transport policy opportunities.
Thank you. And it's the power of mayors being able to work together to consolidate potentially their order books and identify a commonality of design of EV vehicle, and then you can be more bespoke, and surely that must be able to bring the cost down, and you can phase it, so we're not exactly, to your point, all chasing the same small supply. So thank you for that. Councillor Lamb, and it's not, doesn't relate to the appendices.
No, thank you, Mayor. No, it's just from the public part of the paper. So there's a reference on 3.3 to the shadow board, and we talked about it last time this came and had a discussion about political balance members on that shadow board, and I just wondered if there's any update on that, please.
Thank you, Simon.
So we have started to engage with nominated executive members from local authorities at this stage through the shadow board. We'll continue to look at all of our arrangements around shadow boards as we then bring forward our governance plans for the annual meeting.
Thank you. Super. Okie doke. If everyone is happy, we'll stop the live stream and then we can get into discussion on the appendices. Sarah, could you arrange that for us? And if I could ask members of the public to please leave. And apologies. Thank you for your patience. Okay, we're back on live stream. Thank you so much for being patient with us while we're in private session. And before we agree to the recommendations, is there any further thoughts members have? No? Okie doke. Are we happy to approve what we have been discussing? We are? Yes? Good stuff. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to Mass Transit Spatial Development Framework, the Joint Committee, item 7. This is about the need to create a joint committee to take forward the Mass Transit Spatial Development Framework. As I said earlier, there's so much support for our proposals to bring trams back to the streets of Leeds and Bradford, and the paper in front of us is another step in the delivery of that project. May I ask Mike Birch, our Director of Mass Transit, to take us through the recommendations, please, noting that this is Mike's first CA meeting since you joined the CA. Well, I hope it hasn't been too boring for you. But over to you, Mike, and welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the warm welcome. And thank you to the other members for the opportunity to come and share with you where we are. Work on mass transit continues at pace with a view to trying to get trams on the streets of West Yorkshire aligned to the Mayor's pledge. Mass transit will progress through the Transport and Work Act process and not the local planning process. And whilst the local process is not determinative, the local planning policies do form a strong support to obtaining consent for mass transit as we go forward. Currently, no local plans in the districts obtain specific reference to mass transit, and the timeframes for those local plan updates unfortunately don't align to the timeframes for the Transport and Work Act's application early in 2027. So the SDF will provide an important policy document to help support mass transit consent as we move forward. So I've invited along today Stacey White from the team to take us through a little bit of the detail, conscious that you may have questions and it's important that you get access to somebody that knows the detail. So over to you, Stacey.
Thank you so much. And Stacey, it's almost like a task and finish group, isn't it? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mike. So in 2021, the Combined Authority, along with its 5 district partners, signed a statement of intent that agreed to work collectively across the district, including the development of a planning framework across West Yorkshire. So since that time, we've been working with our heads of planning to define that, including what is needed for phase 1, as Mike's just outlined. But also what's really important to note as well is that beyond phase 1, we also need to lay the appropriate planning policy foundations to help us develop the phase 1 concept and roll out that prospect across West Yorkshire in line with the Mass Transit Vision 2040. So we have commissioned a spatial development framework now, and we've agreed with heads of planning that is appropriate and necessary that SDF achieves a development plan document status so that it can carry the necessary weight to take us through that Transport and Works application, but also that it can become capable of adoption within your respective local plans as well. So as WICA doesn't have statutory planning powers, we've been also working with our legal colleagues across the district to understand what the appropriate governance is in terms of overseeing this process. So the report has 3 recommendations, the first of which is that our local authority partners agreed to the preparation of a joint development plan document, that the CA endorses the establishment of a joint committee for this purpose, and that the CA requests that each local authority considers initiating the formal resolution processes to agree to prepare that joint DPD and formation of the joint committee. So in terms of the phase 1 programme, the main driver, as Mike's just said, is getting the SDF Part 1 adopted in time for that Transport and Works application, which is scheduled for early 2027. As you've already said, Mayor, the committee will be a task and finish type committee, whose function is restricted to this use. So the plan is to disband that committee once there's no longer a need to retain it. And then I've already touched on this point, but it's really important to note that whilst there's a clear impetus to get this plan in place to support the phase 1 Transport and Works application, it's also really necessary to develop a robust land use planning framework that can work alongside our local transport plan at a West Yorkshire level to help us realise the vision that we've got for the region, which is clearly articulated in our local growth plan. So I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have, but hopefully that's been a useful introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. My one big question is, this doesn't delay us, does it? And it doesn't set us back in any way?
No, absolutely not. As Mike said, none of the local authorities will be in a position to have planning policy support for mass transit in time for that planning application into transport and works application. So it's really important that we progress this and we progress it at pace. So we've got a clear programme. We're confident that we can get a joint development plan document adopted in time across West Yorkshire to support that phase 1 application, but we need our local authority partners on board to achieve that.
Thank you so much. Any comments? Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. It's one of those things that sounds awfully dull, but is really, really important. And it's a tricky one for those that are involved in developing local plans. It's a bit chicken and egg because you can't reference mass transit until there is a Transport and Public Works Act, is my understanding. And that means those that are in the process of updating their plans can't take full advantage of mass transit at this point, because I'd really like to see us being able to make those references in the local plans, make provision for employment land and make provision for housing land along the corridors that are identified. So it'd be useful to talk a bit more about what the opportunities are to do that now and to get those things embedded in the local plans now, or if we just have to wait. And but this is going to be a really important document. The other bit, and it's a point I've made repeatedly, is it's going to be really important that we keep selling the benefits of mass transit to every part of West Yorkshire, not just the people who are in the immediate corridors and get the immediate benefit. And so we need to make sure, it's a similar point to the last item, where we've got the committee for this, I think it's crucial that it's cross-party and that there is good political balance so that we can genuinely say every part of the authority area is represented, every demographic is represented, every group is represented. It feels from the paper that it's just going to be restricted to executive members, and I hope Councillor Lewis would join me in attesting that in Leeds, where we do work cross-party on this stuff, it leads to better outcomes, and we generally and genuinely are able to leave our politics aside and work together to do the best for Leeds when we're doing development plans. We don't always agree on absolutely everything, but it's a healthy thing to have all those representatives around the table, and I think it's crucial to be able to do that selling job across the district and also to have good accountability and good policy if we've got representation from the whole district and all parties. So the paper doesn't allude to that, but I'd just be grateful if we could get some clarity and perhaps a commitment that we will make sure the membership of this committee will be broad and cross-party.
Thank you. And it was interesting in the event in Parliament that it was MPs from across the region, not just Leeds and Bradford, but also cross-party, because everybody sees the economic opportunity of this huge local, nationally significant infrastructure project for the whole region and beyond. So it's an important point, but obviously it's also, as you say, the chicken and egg. It's about the legislation and the planning requirements. So if I could bring that back to you, Stacey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So it's a good point about local plan preparation because it's lengthy in nature and very, very complex and needs to be supported by a clear evidence base, which I think is what you're referring to. So where you're developing any infrastructure schemes that need to be reflected in a local plan, you need to clearly demonstrate that there's evidence that that is a deliverable prospect. So there will be a tipping point at some point in the future where we're really confident that we've got support for mass transit, we've got a business case that has progressed sufficiently, and we've got a transport and works application at least submitted to the Secretary of State. In terms of developing support for mass transit in the meantime through your respective local plans, there's nothing stopping us collectively working to develop strategic policy support akin to the region supports mass transit and will endeavour to deliver it across the corridors that has been identified in the Mass Transit Vision 2040, and that's something that we're actively engaged with our local planning authorities in doing. So the spatial development framework isn't something that will replace local plans. It's something that will work alongside and within the local planning system. The challenge is to get that progressed in advance of the Transport and Works application, and that's the hindrance in terms of the wider local plan process, that we just won't be in a position within any of the districts where we have an adopted local plan in time for 2027. So the benefit of the SDF means that we can collectively continue to work on developing planning policies within local plans, but alongside that also bring forward a spatial development framework that provides clear policy support for mass transit.
Thank you. And of course, once the job is done, the committee is no longer necessary. Ben, do you want to say something about membership?
Yeah, I just wanted, thank you, Mayor, to respond to Councillor Lamb's point and say that let's look at membership. And there's a difference, of course, between, because of the way that this will be a joint committee, kind of potential voting executive members and co-opted members. But we'll take it away and have a look because your points are well made.
Okie dokie, thank you. Yes, Councillor Morley, apologies.
Yeah, it's just on the joint member committee and voting. Obviously, it's going to be made up of the five districts. The question I do ask, though, is obviously Bradford and Leeds I mentioned already in there, and Kirklees. Calderdale and Wakefield, obviously we're not there at that point yet where what our plans are. But a lot of these decisions from this committee will affect what happens in our districts. Would it make it more viable to have the committee, the quorum for voting to be 4 instead of 3? So obviously then decisions couldn't be made without with us in the room, basically. It's just something I would like to be considered.
Shall we take that away and consider it and just see how that all shakes down with membership and so on as well? But thank you for raising that, because this is not just about Leeds and Bradford. This is absolutely about Calderdale. It's absolutely about Wakefield and Kirklees. Okie doke. So, are we happy to accept the recommendations that the CA endorse the approach to preparation of the Mass Transit Spatial Development Framework as a joint development plan? We are. Thank you very much. So, okay, so moving on to item 8, White Rose Rail Station, and apologies to our member of the public that this is going to be like the okey cokey, that some people are in and some people are out, because this does have an exempt appendix to this item. It provides an overview of the current situation relating to the construction of White Rose Rail Station, which has been paused for just over 12 months. It also sets out the planned next steps in terms of working towards project remobilisation. Before we move forward, again, Appendix 1 contains exempt information, and once the introductions have been done, we go into private session to discuss the exempt item appendix. So if I can, Susan is still on her call, so if I could come to Simon Warburton to provide further high-level details.
Thank you, Mayor. So as members will be aware, it has been a long-standing strategic priority of both Leeds and West Yorkshire to deliver a new rail station at White Rose to act as a gateway for both the White Rose Business Park and indeed the wider commercial developments within that locality, to act as a rail gateway to the retail centre and of course to the wider South Leeds area. So following planning approval of a scheme in November 2021, a funding contribution was agreed through the combined authority of £22 million, comprising a combination of LIPTIP, New Stations Fund, and also Transforming Cities Fund funding, with the breakdown set out in paragraph 3.5 of the report. And the project was then mobilised and managed by Munro Kay, so that's the developer and owner of the White Rose Business Park, as part of an innovation at the time for private sector development in the railway, to be supported by an initiative which has been brought forward by Network Rail entitled Project Speed. Since then, the project has faced a range of challenges, and we do set those out in greater detail for members in the private appendix, which ultimately resulted in Munro Quay being required to bring the construction of the scheme to a halt in spring 2024. Since then, we have been working with Munro Quay and looking to draw partners in to help to identify a remobilisation route, and we've set the broad tenet of what that remobilisation route would look like from paragraphs 3.15 onwards. So now, having identified that route and also reached an initial resolution position with partners, which again is set out in the private appendix, we believe that we are ready to look to move forward again, subject to the discussion of the proposals that we've set out in the appendix. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. It has been a frustrating process, but I'm hoping with this next step that we have an aspiration for the station to be open by 2027, and that would be a great thing for the people of West Yorkshire. Councillor Lamb, it's not to do with the appendices, yeah.
Yeah, no, I've got a couple of questions once we go into the private session, but I think there are a few things that it's important to say while we're in the public session. So I think the starting point is how important a scheme this is for this part of Leeds, and there are about 8,000 or so jobs that are close to the proposed station, and it would open up potentially thousands more to come in the same area. And I think, given where we are today, what's proposed is the right thing to do. But in parallel to that, we have to understand how we got to where we are today, and it's not a pretty picture, frankly. I think the model, which was innovative at the time, I'll fess up and say it was the government of my colour at the time, and I don't think it was a particularly sensible way to do things. There's some merits in the way of leveraging private financing to put it, but leaving, I think part of the learning is leaving a private sector company or anyone who's not the rail network to deliver a big rail infrastructure project has proved to be not a good move. There's a wider issue that we need to look at as a combined authority for Councillor Scullion and those of us that have been immersed in the Governance and Audit Committee. There is a real concern about the capacity of this authority to oversee its governance and financial arrangements. And so I think it's crucial that as part of agreeing this today, that we also commit to, it suggests in the paper, I think scrutiny might want to have a role. I think we should absolutely insist that scrutiny has a role in looking at how we got here. Given the level of big infrastructure projects that we're undertaking, it is crucial that we learn the lessons from this and do it thoroughly, openly, transparently, to make sure we don't get to a position like this again, because what we're agreeing today is getting control back of the project. The bit we don't know is how much is it going to cost to then deliver the final scheme, and we can get into more of that in the private session. The other bit that I think it's important to talk about here is what are we going to do to make sure the rail sector itself is on the hook to help us deliver this, so that it doesn't just sit with the combined authority, and what assurances can you give that we're going to do everything possible to make sure that that happens?
Thank you, Councillor. Simon.
Yes, thank you. And I think Councillor Lamb makes very important points around us continuing to challenge how the right model is established for the delivery of rail infrastructure in West Yorkshire, and it's something that's also been raised recently. I'm sure Councillor Hinchcliffe would say herself if she was here at the Transport Committee, in terms of the pace at which we're getting the right response from the rail industry around a number of our accessibility projects as well. And that, of course, is why, Mayor, you've identified in your representations to ministers around Great British Railways that a new local infrastructure delivery model has to be one of the three key tenets of that future Great British Railways model, because a number of different models have been tested over the years around the country, and there continues to be real challenges both in terms of pace of delivery and also in terms of scheme inflation. We are not alone as West Yorkshire in terms of facing these challenges. I know I've talked prior to the meeting with Councillor Anderson, and there is fully an intention for the scrutiny committee to want to understand the lessons that we learned, and I think that's very important and really welcome that scrutiny committee wants to play that role with us, because I think both as officers and members that there is there's an important job to do here with regards to them moving forward. Yes, absolutely. So we've been engaging with both the department and Network Rail throughout the process. The station project is incredibly important to Network Rail in the context of the completion of the Transpennine route upgrade, and therefore they have a stake and are therefore staying close at the table with us. We are very keen that Network Rail plays ideally the lead role in the delivery of the station as we move through remobilisation. And then from a department perspective, Mayor, you've raised the issue with the Rail Minister, and I think we've had a very positive indication from him that he understands the challenges that we face here, and that if we can get to a steady position, as we'll discuss in private, that he's then very much open to the department working with us to look at what an appropriate partnership funding model could look like.
Thank you so much. Councillor Anderson.
Just briefly on the discussions that we've had, I just want to get this on above the line, so it might be recorded in the minutes, that we need to get a meeting in place as quickly as possible with scrutiny to agree the terms of reference as to what we're going to work in, and which areas legal are concerned might get into commercial confidentiality, which shouldn't necessarily be discussed by scrutiny. So we need to know what our limits are, so we can put our tentacles into, and where we need to back off and leave to the appropriate professionals to make the decisions as well. So just making it clear. And the final thing as well, in terms of timescales, because if you are going to meet this July date, which, as we've discussed, is hopeful going to do so, that scrutiny gets its meetings in quickly, so we don't hold you up in terms of making your final recommendations.
Thank you, and I do appreciate that ambition not to hold up the changes that we need to implement in order to get up and running again by 27. As I say, this is not ideal, absolutely, and the initial conversations about this partnership were 2017, I think, which feels like a whole different world, doesn't it? But the statutory relationship between mayors and GB Rail, I think, couldn't come soon enough. That we don't feel like we're outside the door of people making decisions about our communities, that we can really influence the priorities and phasing. Councillor Galton.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's unfortunate in terms of the name of the station, to tell you the truth, because there's a danger that it's become a symbol of the inability of publicly generated schemes to actually deliver. And so it's really welcome that there is this solution being brought forward now, because we do want devolution to be seen in a positive light and for devolved authorities like ours to be the enablers of things to happen. I think it's really useful that this is sorted out as soon as possible, because, as I said, with the name that it has, it sort of exemplifies Yorkshire and our ability to act for ourselves. And I would agree with the comments that have been made that the national government and any new national organisations like Great British Railways need to be responsive rather than say, well, this is your problem because you've got devolved authorities now. The only way that you deliver anything these days is through proper partnership, and this will be a real test case. So I wish you luck.
Indeed, and thank you for the support. Okie doke. So now we will go into private session. So I'm afraid our member of the public, sorry, up and down. And if we could go off live stream, please. Superb. Can we now take a vote, please, that the Combined Authority gives approval to funding to close out legacy issues to enable the project to move forward towards remobilisation as set out in exempt appendix? We can, thank you. That a further report is provided to the CA to set out a project plan and funding strategy for scheme completion. We can? Yes, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 9, work and health. This is to the member of the public, not exempt, so please settle in. The next item provides an update on our work and health programme, working in partnership with health colleagues, DWP and local authorities to support people back into work and prevent people from falling out of work. The team have been working incredibly hard with colleagues to establish these programmes and ensure we get into delivery as soon as possible. We know there are too many people who want to work but can't because of poor health. And if we're to achieve our ambitions as a region and help to put more money back into people's pockets, we need to change that. So first, can I come to Councillor Lewis as Chair of the Economy Committee to introduce the item, and then over to Felix Kumian-Pofo, Director of Inclusive Economy, Skills and Culture. Thank you. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Mayor. And I think it's really an important bit of work we're doing with the NHS. I think it's exciting. We've both got an accelerator and a trailblazer in West Yorkshire. But I mean, the reason we're doing this is we know to get to 80% employment in West Yorkshire, that's 115,000 people that need to move into work. And our estimate around why those people aren't in work is for health reasons is around 97,000 of those. So it is a really important part of the work we're doing with the health service and the DWP and ourselves on employment. I think a lot of us have had a long history in West Yorkshire of delivering really successful employment and skills schemes, and being able to pull this in one place, I think is a good thing. So shall I pass over to Felix at this point as well?
Thank you. Felix.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Members will know we've been coming to you over the last few meetings to make sure you're fully updated on where we are with this program. Just by way of very quick context, we were grateful recipients of funding from central governments through various sources, about £11 million via the ICB, which the ICB is accountable body for what we call an accelerator, and £10 million to the Combined Authority for Trailblazer, and £16.2 million for Connect to Work. The paper you've got is focused particularly on the Trailblazer bit of this. And in West Yorkshire, we have a track record, a very good track record of working in partnership. We have a long-standing partnership across all our stakeholders to work on this policy space together. So we're running this as one program, and outside of meetings like this, we do not use the language of Trailblazer or Accelerator or whatever else. It's simply focusing on the interventions. The paper you've got then focuses on the program business case that we've pulled together for the Trailblazer bit of that, which is focusing in particular on 4 areas of intervention. One is how we support employers to be able to then support people into employment and to stay in work. Employers are reporting to us for various reasons that it's increasingly difficult for them, and so they're not falling over themselves, so to speak, to create employment opportunities where they feel they might need to invest even more to support people to stay in work. So we're working to understand the type of investments and incentives that will encourage and enable employers to be able to do this. There's also a package of work looking at what the right package of incentives should look like to again support residents, to support individuals, to get closer to the labour market and into work, and how we can hardwire some agency into this, so residents actually are exercising some amount of choice in this as part of the deal. We're also looking at how we work with the voluntary sector. There are a lot of voluntary sector partners who are really working at a local level and who are recipients of people who are referred to them because they're able to offer certain types of support that's really crucial. And we again look into how we work with them, use the funding here to scale up what they do so they can support more people, and where there are innovative practices or there are practices that we know actually work, that we can support that as best we can. And then finally, there's some funding to go into Employment West Yorkshire, which is our framework for how we support people who come through the door, sometimes referred via the job centre to be able to get into work. It's important to note that what we're trying to do is essentially twofold: to support people who are in employment but who may be at risk of falling out of employment, to stay in work with the right level of support, and then to support people who are out of employment, economically inactive, to hopefully get them back into work. And this is very expensive, upfront investment. It could be deemed that way, but in the medium term, this pays for itself because people are able to get back into work, and it improves their lives, their well-being, their prosperity, and their families. So the exchequer obviously benefits in return. So there are a series of recommendations in this paper. I'm happy to go through them, but I'll take your cue, Chair.
Thank you so much. It's such an important piece of work. We've got to work at speed. It's 20 million extra money from government, but we've only a year. So we've got to turn things around quite swiftly. So thank you for the speed at which the team are working. Any comments? Yes, Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Two parts to this. So I think everybody, I'm sure, will support the sentiment and what's being delivered, or what we're trying to deliver here. Part of there's two concerns, which this won't be a surprise to Felix. Anyway, one is the aspect of how you measure the number of people that are currently not working that get back into work is quite easy to do. The challenge is, how do you measure the people who are at risk of leaving the workforce? And if you can't measure it, you can't fix it. And it's a very difficult thing. And whether I just haven't read it well or it's not presented well in the papers, it doesn't set that out for me, how we're proposing, A, to measure it, and B, to deal with it. The second point is really around how we're going to, I personally think the fastest and quickest way to have a big impact here is to directly grant fund employers to be able to do things to keep people in work, and also to take people, if all we're going to do is create a big bureaucracy of people that are working with people, I wonder if that will have the impact that we want. And the final point is, what is the combined authority going to do to set an example to everybody else? So again, I pre-warned Felix of the question of how many people have we employed as a combined authority in the last 12 months, and how many of those were people who were outside of the labour market for health reasons, and do do we have a target to address? We have targets for lots of recruitment. So are we going to set the standard as a combined authority? Lots of things we're doing, lots of posts being created directly and indirectly. What are we going to do to set an example to everybody else?
Thank you. And certainly government has set us very high standards as well, and numbers, and we will be matching those numbers at speed. But your challenge about our organisation is something that really figures in everything that I do, that we just can't talk the talk. We have to also live it as an organisation, whether that's around EDI, whether that's about flexible working, and the values that we all share also have to be reflected through us as when we're expecting others to sign the Fair Work Charter, do the right thing. I would say we are in a really good position with the membership of the Fair Work Charter. There are businesses there that have signed up to be better and to do the right thing. I believe they are going to be our first port of call. They're going to be great partners in this space as we support them to take on people who potentially are coming back into work after poor health, etc. I am pleased to see that waiting lists in the NHS are falling, and you are more able now to get a doctor's appointment with this investment that we're seeing. It may not be hitting your surgery, given your response, but it does feel like that backlog is being tackled at the centre, whilst we're also being empowered to do initiatives and interventions in the regions. But I wonder, Felix, if you'd like to answer a bit of the substantial stuff.
I will do my best with the help of Ben as well for one part of it. You're absolutely right on the point you make about the challenge involved in measuring, particularly inactivity, but also people who are at risk of becoming inactive. This is absolutely not an exact science. The best information we've got, I suppose, comes from two sources. So for economic inactivity, the information we use is from the ONS. Peter is looking at me, so I cannot get this wrong, otherwise he'll have words. It's from the Labour Force Survey, which the ONS put out. It's an international benchmark. But the ONS themselves do admit openly in public that their data for a few years now is not as good as it could be. So it is absolutely possible that the data that we're working with is not as accurate when it comes to economic inactivity as it could be, but we are working with the exact same data that everybody else is working with, and there's nothing we can do about that. However, the bit about people who might be at risk, who might be at work and at risk, we have much more robust information, not necessarily us, but our health colleagues, because the evidence is very clear that people who are at risk of falling out of the labour market do present with certain symptoms before then. And those symptoms sort of congregate around 3 or 4 areas. Pardon me, I'll not remember them all, but they are often musculoskeletal conditions or chronic conditions that are related to that. They might be often cardiovascular or mental health and well-being related. And when people experience such symptoms related to any of these, they present at various health facilities with these, and they are signposted to certain places. So our health colleagues know who these people are, know where they are, and at that point where they are signposted, the services that we are supporting or scaling up then swing into action because people are signposted to those services to receive the support that we are putting in place. So we have stronger numbers at the at-risk end, but the economic inactivity end is survey-based, it's national data. It's as good as we can get it, but we know that it's not the best information.
Thank you. And colleagues, I'm so sorry, it is 20 to 4. So I'm going to now, unfortunately, press gang people into shorter responses and shorter questions. Ben.
I was just going to say we could talk for a long period of time this afternoon about what the organisation is doing in this space. But I'll limit my comments to two, Councillor Lamb, in terms of what the organisation is doing. The first is that the programmes that Felix is talking about and are the subject of this paper as Felix has said, are as much about stopping people falling out of the workplace and going into that kind of state of economic inactivity. And we do quite a lot within the organisation, as you would expect, to support people that are finding work challenging and dealing with the range of neurodiversity and other issues that might affect their ability to continue to work. So rather than kind of give you an answer at length this afternoon, I think the right thing to do is we are looking to bring forward a workforce strategy because the organisation is facing both challenges in terms of our ability to recruit in the current marketplace and a need for a range of skills as well as trying to increase the diversity of the organisation going forwards. And so I think this deserves a substantive item on the CA agenda in a meeting going forwards rather than trying to deal with it at pace today. That help?
That's a great recommendation. Thank you. Councillor Galton, brevity.
Thanks, Chair. I'll try. Yes, one of the things that is apparent is this is an area which it hasn't all of a sudden become an issue. So we know that there are organisations and there are strategies out there that we're already trying to tackle this. So I think it's interesting to understand how we will enable the concern to be scaled up in the responses that we hope to create through this programme. Because I appreciate that there are going to be some professional capacity issues because there are shortages of professionals. There are issues without getting appointments on the NHS to be seen for a health condition, for instance. So I hope that some of the reportage comes out of that. One of the most valuable things as well about things like the Poverty Truth Commission for the Council in Leeds, in terms of understanding poverty so that we can better address it, is that first-person evidence coming forward. So part of this, I hope, is us gathering what those barriers and blockages are for people as they express them themselves, so that in the longer term, after this year is up, we can take them on more effectively in our strategies. And thirdly, I would like to see how flexible we are in terms of the responses to get people back into employment in looking at things like disability and entrepreneurship as options, as opposed to always relying on employers to be forever more accommodating, because that still might not be the best environment for some people to thrive economically, and they might be better off setting up their own businesses. So I'm hoping that that might be incorporated within the work.
Thank you, Councillor Galton. And your points are minuted and heard. Thank you. Yes, Asma.
Just quickly on the, and you looked at the measures and women in leadership in organisations drop out of work, and a lot of it is around understanding of menopause and similar leadership on the board of recognition of those. So I hope that part of what you're doing will also pick up on leadership and how that impacts on women dropping out of employment.
Thank you. Very good point. Okie dokie. Thank you very much. So are we happy to approve the recommendations on work and health? Thank you so much. And we can then move on to the state of the region. Now, I am afraid we're going to have to whiz through this, particularly because this is the last time we'll see it in this iteration. We're developing it further, aren't we? And I know that Peter is going to talk to this, but initially, Sarah Eaton, if you'd like to open up the recommendations of the item, please.
Thank you, Mayor. And Peter's here in case we get any technical questions on kind of the documentation. So I am going to quickly whiz through. So I think colleagues will be aware that when we developed the West Yorkshire plan, we developed at the same time a series of key performance indicators that would kind of track progress over time. And State of the Region is a really good opportunity for us on an annual basis to kind of take stock of kind of where we're moving in and identify kind of both challenges and opportunities that we're facing across the region. So what this paper does, I'm pleased to say, is present the latest summary of State of the Region. And as you'll read in the paper, it's actually an executive summary this time around. We've not done a full comprehensive report, and that's primarily because last year we've done an awful lot of work around the local growth plan in terms of the evidence base, and we've also done work around the local transport plan and the evidence base for that. So this is a summary of the kind of the full comprehensive report and kind of an update. There is a series of kind of key messages in here which kind of give headlines of the report, but I hope colleagues have had the opportunity to kind of have a read of that. I'm not intending to kind of go through those key messages this time round, but I think the important point to make is that obviously evidence and making evidence-based decisions is really, really important to the CA, and I think you'll have seen that with kind of items on the local growth plan where we're developing our priorities and kind of really looking at where we want to kind of prioritise our investments moving forward. So data is increasingly becoming quite important in terms of what we do. So as you'll see in the report, what we're proposing to do, we have done a review already, is to kind of develop and kind of amend the approach next time round. And what we'll be looking to do is kind of bring forward a report that kind of moves beyond kind of explaining where we are, kind of outlining where we are to kind of explanation and talks about measuring the impact. Now that's going to be really important as we kind of progress work on the integrated settlement and the development of an outcomes framework, and this work will need to align with that so that we're kind of really well placed to kind of move into that space from 2026 onwards. So this is the last time that you'll see a report of this kind of nature. What we will do, however, is kind of bring forward the new format of that report and talk about what that might look like at a future meeting there, so that we can kind of discuss that, because I think it is really important that we keep our eye on the evidence bases that we're developing as we progress and move forward. So I'll stop speaking there. Peter is here just in case anybody's got anything that they really want to pick up as part of the conversation.
Thank you. And I know this is a big piece of work, and we want to be data-led organisation, evidence-led to make our decisions. We need the proof that what we're going to be doing is responding to real-time challenges. Anybody got any comments on the state of the region? No, thank you. I'm so sorry, Peter, that you came and no one wanted to ask you a question. But it's pretty straightforward in the report, and I'm sure you'll have time to reflect on the data and everything. And going forward, Sarah, do you just want to tell us what it's going to look like? How are we going to gather data?
So we'll kind of follow the same process. We've still got the key performance indicators. We do need to do some work to align that with the outcomes framework that we're developing for the integrated settlement. So there may be some kind of analysis across to make sure that we're kind of measuring the right things, and that that's going to enable us to kind of take some of the decisions over this next period. But we will be bringing, once we've kind of got a little bit more into that process, we'll be bringing something that kind of explains what this approach might look like moving forward.
Thank you so much. So can the Combined Authority note the contents of the report and approve proposals for future development and reporting arrangements for State of the Region 2025? We can? Lovely. Thank you. Right, moving swiftly on. Thank you so much, Peter, for taking time. Corporate Plan 24-28. This is to approve documents that establish the CA's corporate process priorities for delivery until 2028. The appendices to the report to be approved are the Corporate Plan 2025-28, an associated delivery plan, and the summary business plans for the Combined Authority 25-26. Sarah Eaton, may I ask you to talk us through the recommendations?
And thank you, Mayor. So I think colleagues will be aware that kind of earlier in the year, at the end of January, we brought forward details around our budget and draft corporate priorities as part of kind of a new approach to kind of multi-year kind of business planning. So some of the kind of content of the corporate plan it should be familiar, because it's taking forward some of the decisions that we kind of agreed earlier on in the year. It also builds on kind of the approach that we developed last year, where we started to kind of align a kind of activity with the West Yorkshire plan. And what we've done since that time is kind of update our priorities and actually kind of create more of a forward look. So what we're trying to do is really kind of think ahead of the game, and we've moved away from looking at a corporate plan on an annual basis to really starting to look at around a 4-yearly basis. So what this corporate plan does is kind of give you that forward look, really, which I think is really important in terms of being able to kind of plan our delivery. So to support the corporate plan, we've also got delivery plans which start to kind of highlight some of the activity that will be kind of progressing over this next period of time. The intention is to kind of update this on an annual basis. We know that things do move and change, and we don't want it to kind of be just static. It's really important that this kind of takes on board some of the activity that we kind of are doing in year as well. But it does give a sense and a direction of travel, I think, and supports us in kind of delivering across the organisation. In addition to kind of the plan, what we've done is spent quite a bit of time refining some of our key performance indicators, and again that's going to be really important in terms of allowing us to kind of measure progress and performance over this next period of time. We had a significant number of performance indicators aligned to the last corporate plan, which make it quite challenging to see the wood for the trees. This has given us a real opportunity to kind of start to kind of really focus on our performance as we kind of progress and move forward. And I think alongside the corporate plan, what we've also done since January is take the opportunity to kind of update kind of the plans on the page that you've got in front of you there, which now take on board some of the detail that we've kind of been exploring over the last couple of months. So I'll stop talking there. I think there are some tidying up issues that we've got to do. We've got to kind of include the forwards and kind of design the document. And we've got to make sure that we've kind of got detail in there about your key appointments, Mayor, in that document as we kind of move forward. So we may well be coming forward to colleagues as well to update on things like photographs. But I think generally speaking, the content within the plan is kind of here with you today for kind of approval.
Thank you. And that long-term vision, I think, is really important. Takes us up to my next election. So hopefully we will have delivered exactly what we said we would. So any comments? Great stuff. And we are happy to approve the content of the corporate plan 2025-26 and associated delivery plan. We are. Thank you all so much. So moving on swiftly to project approvals. The first project approval provides details of one project to recommend to progress through the assurance process. That's our investment zone. Can I ask Councillor Lewis, as Chair of the Economy Committee, and then Felix to talk us through the recommendations, please. Councillor Lewis. Straight to Felix. Thank you. Felix.
I'll be very quick on this one. This first one about the investment zones, you would know we're giving funding from central government to deliver this program. It's absolutely central to our local growth plan because it's focused on health tech and digital tech, two of our priority sectors. The approval you've got in front of you is for us to be able to invest with Leeds Beckett University on a sports incubator. This will help us put in some capital equipment and provide some revenue support so that innovators, inventors, entrepreneurs can go in there, make use of the facilities and get the support they need to develop their products and their ideas and to register their businesses and launch. So that's what this is looking to do to grow that sector.
It's a terrific project. And are we happy to approve? We are. Brilliant. Thank you. One of the best sports universities in the whole country, if not Europe. Brilliant. Moving on to the second approval, which is Creative Industries, Culture, Heritage and Sport, and obviously close to my heart, Creative Health. Felix.
Thank you very much. We know that there's a lot of creative health related activity in West Yorkshire. We have, as a combined authority, tried to provide as much support as we can, and this approval we're seeking from you is to enable us actually play a more of a convening and system leadership role. This funding will go towards mapping the activity that sits in the system so we actually understand better what's going on. We have a better understanding of what the gaps are and where greater support will be needed and what good work is underway that we might want to shine a light on and scale up in some way. It will also allow us to develop a bit of a strategy around how we develop this going forward, and it makes us ready for when opportunities come for us to develop this further. The final point I'll make is the first paper that I presented on work and health. A lot of this activity is directly aligned to that. It's not fully aligned, but it's directly aligned to that. So we'll make sure that at a point where after we've done this mapping and strategy work, activities begin to come out of this exercise, we are fully aligning that wherever it's possible. So we're not talking about disparate activities.
Thank you. And are we happy to approve the recommendations? Thank you so much. Brilliant. Okie dokie. Moving on to governance arrangements. This report asks the CA to consider a number of governance arrangements, which I would like Ben Still, our Chief Exec, to take us through, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So there are three issues in this paper. The first is the composition and member remuneration for the Governance and Audit Committee. Members will recall that we've expanded the membership to include independent members and we've therefore asked our independent remuneration panel to look at those levels of remuneration, and that report is in this paper for your consideration and recommendation to approve that. The second item in the paper is around the monitoring officer role, and I don't want to preempt what the Mayor's about to say, but we need to have one, and the one that we've got, with a heavy heart, this might well be her last meeting. So we have to have another, and this is for the Combined Authority to endorse the appointment of an interim monitoring officer, Satinder Sahota, who is sat behind you in the seats over there. And I'll leave further comments on that to the Mayor. And the final element of the paper is an update. In a previous CA meeting, we indicated that to support the officer governance arrangements and to support us, both as the organisation becomes more complex in terms of its governance, is delivering a wider range of complex and challenging infrastructure schemes, including mass transit, that we would bring independent experts in to support us in that work. This is just to say that we are looking at that process. We'll bring the results of that to a future meeting, and we're currently in the process of identifying and recruiting individuals. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any comments? Great. So are we happy to approve the recommendations of the Independent Remuneration Panel on Remuneration for Governance Audit Committee members as set out in paragraph 3.2 in Appendix 1, and approve the appointment of Satinder Sahota as Interim Monitoring Officer with effect from the 15th of May, and that the Combined Authority notes non-exec directors recruitment is underway to advise officer leadership boards. Happy to approve. Thank you all so much. Final but one item, minutes for information. This updates members with details of minutes from other committees, as well as summaries from formal meetings that have been published on the CA's website. Now, this brings us to the end of the meeting. But before we close, can I just give my personal thanks to Caroline, who has kept us safe. And whilst I wouldn't say there were times when there weren't challenges, because I like to run things at speed, but I'm not a lawyer. So it's good that we had you to help us make the right decision. Your final meeting, is my understanding. You've led our legal and governance function and held the role of monitoring officer since joining in 2016. And before that, played an integral role in the creation of the CA in 2014, working with government on the legislation and acting as legal advisor to the Shadow Authority during 2013 and 14. So it's all your fault. You've built it, so we are enormously grateful. And since your time, Caroline, at the CA, you've played such a leading role in so many of our big devolution agenda items, transitioning from a mayoral authority to a mayoral strategic authority with a single settlement and mature and respected by government. And a lot of that is thanks to you. You also held the role of most senior legal advisor, guided and supported officers, members, ensuring good governance runs through all of our decision making. Honestly, everybody around this table wants to thank you, Caroline, for your service. You've definitely given me wise counsel over the last few years. I'm sure there will be people, once the meeting is finished, would like to give you their congratulations as well. But members, the date of the next meeting is the 19th of June 2025. It'll be our annual meeting, and we'll revert to the normal start time of 11 a.m. But I'm sure there might be a couple of people that want to say something about Caroline, and maybe Ben, you'd like to just add your thoughts.
Yeah, yes, I would. I mean, I can't really express my gratitude to Caroline over all of the years. They say that no one is irreplaceable, but genuinely, Caroline, you have been there at every kind of challenging moment we've had in this organisation as we have grown and evolved and faced all the challenges that have been involved in that. And as the Mayor says, you have just delivered sensible, wise counsel, and just kept us on the straight and narrow. And you leave extremely kind of a challenging role to be filled substantively. I'm sure Satinder's going to do a brilliant job as an interim. We're currently in the process of doing the substantive recruitment, but you will set the standard. You've just been absolutely brilliant, and you will be sorely missed. Thank you ever so much.
Caroline, do you want to say anything?
Gosh. I think I might quit while I'm ahead and drop myself in. Thank you both for those really kind words. It does mean a lot. Big step to walk away. It's such an exciting time going forward for the organisation. It will go from strength to strength. I have a great team in terms of my legal and governance team behind me, so my successor will take that on. And yeah, exciting times. And just thank you to everybody who's been here and supported me, and I've really enjoyed that working together with. So yes, I won't hold the meeting up any longer, but thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Enjoy the next adventure.